Good morning and welcome to Waking Up with Don. It is Monday and it is Medical Monday, and we have Dr. Roman Nation to give us some health tips for your week. Dr. Nation, thank you for coming back on the show and getting us smart on what we need to look out for. I read in the news recently that there is a measles outbreak.
Correct.
Now, I'm of a generation where I pretty much had all the childhood diseases, but there are a lot of vaccinations that will keep you from getting the measles or the mumps or whatever.
Yep.
What's going on? Huge outbreak in the Philippines. Measles is pretty common in Europe and in Asia, and it's making a comeback here.
It's becoming a lot more common because of some of the anti-vaccination movements that certain groups have started. When we talked before about herd immunity is kind of what's kept some of that in check, but as the anti-vaccination movement grows is when you start getting these measles outbreaks.
And particularly if you travel, it's vacation season, and maybe your family's taking a European vacation. Should you make sure your shots are up to date?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have quite a few folks that have come to us in the clinic when they're going to South America, and they're concerned about hepatitis. Vaccinations that are standard now for children that are been born in the last decade have been about the same in terms of hepatitis A, B, measles, mumps, rubella, pneumonia, those types of things, and even meningitis is actually now kind of as an expected standard as far as vaccinations go. So there's quite a few things that are considered standard, but if parents don't vaccinate their children or parents haven't been vaccinated themselves and they go to a foreign country, it's not uncommon at all to get hepatitis A as part of a foodborne illness. And then one of the biggest things when you talk about travel is drinking clean water. So that's a huge thing in parasitology is that these little parasites you can't see them unless you're looking under a microscope.
And we take that for granted in this country, that
Absolutely.
you turn on the tap and the water's clean and you can drink it. That's not always the case in other countries.
No, and it's expected to be chlorinated. And if you really pay attention to the water areas around here, occasionally you'll get notices in the mail or over TV that says that the water supply is not up to the standard, so they don't recommend drinking the tap water for a very short period of time, and then they bring it back to the standard. But there's testing that's done on a regular basis through the county for those types of things.
It's funny you should mention chlorination, because even back in the day there was an anti-chlorination movement.
Yes.
Just like the anti-vaccination movement. People thought it was some sort of plot or scheme or God knows what, or somebody was getting rich off it. But,
and it's really strange because there's still areas around Bay County that don't fluoridate their water. And you talk about teeth health, you look at some of the biggest things that cause long-term cardiac disease and those kinds of things. You can see it just about everywhere you go is people who have poor teeth condition, and a vast majority of that is not just from not brushing your teeth or taking care of your teeth. As you're older, it actually starts when they're younger, when their teeth are forming, and you don't give your children fluoridated water. So certain communities where we did residency in California, they actually sell fluoridated water at the grocery store because the city or wherever their housing doesn't put fluoride in it, so you actually give your kids fluoridated water.
It's amazing. We talked briefly before we started the interview about the history of the Gulf Coast, and because of the climate, we had a lot of diseases here back in the 1800s that you would only associate with like third world countries or tropical countries. I know when I traveled to the Republic of Panama, they still had dengue fever down there.
Yes, sir.
Which is just sounds so exotic to American ears.
Yeah.
And if you went to Panama, you had to stay in the canal zone.
Yep.
If you went outside the canal zone, you had to get all these shots to go anywhere else.
Yep, and that's based on mosquito control, and they do a lot of that. If you ever see the trucks driving around at night, you have the little fog that comes out of them at night. That's all stuff trying to keep mosquito control down. The biggest thing that we were always taught in medical school is that if you're near a standing body of water, be more careful. And you think about that around here. There's a ton of standing bodies.
I live on a lake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and it's in the early morning hours and in the late evening hours, right around sunset. So most people can feel the little gnats and stuff that come around, but they don't actually feel the mosquitoes, and those are the ones that tend to bite and carry diseases and stuff with them. Now, it's still exceptionally rare to contract something like that in this area, and as far as I know, I haven't seen any reports of that.
But every now and then you hear a story of meningitis, and that's carried by mosquitoes, isn't it?
Actually, no. Meningitis is just like the flu. It's a respiratory type illness that gets passed from one person to another one, or through secretions, those kinds of things. And meningitis is a specific set of, there's bacteria that causes it, and there's certain types of viruses that cause it too. The dorm population and like college kids is really the most susceptible one. But they've also updated the vaccines so that children about age 11 or 12 is also recommended to get meningitis vaccines as well. So,
well, we've got to run off to local weather, but let's talk more about that on the other side of this break. And now to your local weather, brought to you by the West Pittman Law Firm. westpittmanlawfirm.com. Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Dr. Roman Nation, and it is Medical Monday. We were talking a lot during the break, but I just want to wrap up our last topic about living here in the Sun Belt.
Yes, sir.
What do we need to be aware of? I know people are very cognizant of the dangers of the sun.
They are. What's interesting is as the younger population isn't nearly as at risk for skin cancers and those types of things because their DNA is just much more versatile and reparative when it comes to sun damage. It is. It's just the way that our mitochondria work and how our system is put together. As we get older, everything changes, as everybody is aware of. And what I typically see is as folks age, they start to chalk a lot of things up to just being older. Things like joint pains, or their skin gets more, has more wrinkles in it, or their skin dries out, those types of things. And really, it comes from when we talk about sun avoidance. A lot of folks, as they get older, have kind of programmed into stay away from the sun. Well, when you do that, you end up becoming vitamin D deficient. Vitamin D deficiency, and I've talked about this.
Darned if you don't.
It really is, and it's the same thing. We do a lot of stuff on the nutrition stuff with eggs too, because that's gotten a huge bad rap in the past, and so I'll tell you more about that.
Yeah.
But on vitamin D, we have a lot of folks that stay out of the sun trying to avoid skin cancer. Well, in the process of doing that, when you become vitamin D deficient, your risk for cardiac disease goes up. So there's a lot of importance there to that, making sure you have other vitamin supplements if you're not getting it from the sun. And I wouldn't recommend trying to get your vitamin D level from the sun because your risk of skin cancer.
But everybody needs a little bit of sun, right?
Everybody does.
I got sun this weekend. I cooked my face out at Harley Davidson.
And Dr. Kanawi and I have talked about this in the past, is that the requirement for being in the sun is about 30 minutes of full sunshine a day when the sun is at high noon. Now, try and schedule your day around that. Yeah. It's going to be pretty hard. Anything beyond that, you're going to have less sun exposure.
You don't need to be like in your bathing suit on the beach. I mean, just walk the dog or something too, right?
That doesn't quite give you enough. That's the problem, is because, like we're dressed right now, you have this much and this much. That's less than 10% of your body skin area that's going to have sun exposure to it. So, no, and you don't want to try and concentrate all that sun on your face because it's going to make you look older a lot faster.
I know how that goes. My face looks like an old catcher's mitt now because of the sun. Now, an interesting part of your practice now is that you've got JT on staff now. And he's a nutritionist.
Yep.
And now he's actually putting people's lives back on track, and it's not just weight; their fitness and everything is turning around.
We've had some tremendous success. One of my greatest success stories is a gentleman that I've been following for, I've known him for about 3-4 years now, and he's a diabetic, an insulin-dependent diabetic, and he's almost 70 years old. And we meet every 3 months, and we watch his numbers, and we talk about his diet, and we talk about his exercise and things like that, and none of it ever really came together. So when I brought JT on, I said, here, you want to be my test case? And he says, well, yeah, sure, let's go. And I kid you not, in 2 weeks, he came back beaming from just 2 weeks worth of eating cleanly.
Eating clean?
Yeah.
What all does that mean?
And that's what I was talking about during the break, is that, a lot of media and diets push towards, like books, eat this, don't eat this, eat that instead, of those kinds of things. A lot of things push towards avoidance of specific types of foods, and there's a little bit to that. You don't want to try and make the majority of your diet ice cream and donuts and those kinds of things. But the way that we teach it is there's a specific requirement that your body needs on a daily basis, and that comes from a combination of proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And when you get those in your system in the right order and throughout the day, then your metabolism really does turn on.
In the right order.
Correct.
In the right proportion.
Correct.
And right timing too.
Correct. Yes. And because if you try to put it all in there at once, like the biggest mistake a lot of my diabetics make is that, well, I don't understand why I'm not losing weight, or why my sugars are higher because I only eat once a day. That is the worst thing you could possibly do for your system.
You got to have 3 squares, right? Is that right?
It's closer to 4 to 5, and if you're more athletic, it's actually 6 to 7.
So grazing is probably a good thing to do.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Your system will do a lot better metabolically if it does that. So, but the patient I was talking about, we've not only has he lost weight, he's gotten his face back. His insulin levels have dropped by half.
Wow.
In 2 months, and his
amazing.
joint pains are better too. I mean, it's kind of a magical type thing. And I have another patient that we talked about during the break. She's been doing it for about 6 weeks now, and these are not starvation diets. That's the thing, is most people expect when they start a diet that the scale is going to drop first. Really, from folks who have been trying to diet, that the scale actually doesn't change at all up front, and in some it goes up because they've been dehydrated and malnourished. So in the process of doing that, they swell to start with, and then they start losing. They lose inches first, and then the
So
scale
the most
comes
immediate
down.
measure of success is the tape.
Absolutely, absolutely, yeah.
Dr. Nation, we're so out of time.
Oh,
It's not
yeah,
funny,
like
but
always.
But as always, because I could talk to you for hours. Thanks a lot for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
And
my pleasure.
I look forward to learning more about JT and his work.
Yes, sir.
Out at Nation's Best.
Yes, sir.
Out there on Highway 77.
Hi, this is David Lovett, and this is your Mad Hatter Minute. The engine coolant can be best described as the lifeblood of the motor. Antifreeze, also known as engine coolant, is a fluid that helps maintain optimal engine temperatures, and it has to be changed from time to time. Keeping your antifreeze fresh is very important. Over time, the inhibitors in the antifreeze that keep your car from overheating start to break down and lose their properties, and that's when problems begin. First, the obvious. Your vehicle is likely to overheat, especially in the summertime. The extreme heat created by the engine combined with the extreme outside temperatures can result in an overheating condition which can cause some serious damage to your motor. Secondly, in wintertime, your car is not protected from the cold. Freezing temperatures can cause the coolant inside your vehicle to freeze and expand, which could crack your engine block. Lastly, a condition known as electrolysis can form. Your vehicle actually generates electricity. Your engine is protected by the inhibitors in the engine coolant. When the inhibitors begin to break down, your protection is lost, and your engine block starts to corrode from the inside out. You have to change your engine coolant in accordance to your manufacturer's recommendation. Most vehicles today have extended life coolant, which means that the coolant can go for 100,000 miles. Check your owner's manual or ask a trusted auto repair facility when you should have your coolant exchanged. I am David Lovett, and that has been your Mad Hatter Minute.
Hey folks, this is Joshua Brown with Mad Hatter on 23rd Street. Is your check engine light on? If it is, text MADHAT28, that's MADHAT28, to 24247.
Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Dr. Aaron Shores, and we're talking about your spinal health. Dr. Shores, thank you for coming back on the show. You know, people come to you usually when things have gone wrong, when they're in pain. What can we do not to see you? I mean, you want to stay healthy. You don't want to go to the doctors and go through all that stuff. What can we do every day?
Absolutely. Great question. You know, I think the one thing I always preach to my patients in the beginning of any discussion with me is always moderation. You know, I find there's a lot of weekend warriors out there. We all have busy schedules, so we spend our week doing whatever we do, chasing the kids around, going to work, and then we try to get a whole week's worth of exercise in on Saturday, if we exercise at all, or worse yet, we go out and hang from the roof and clean gutters and work in the yard all day, and we end up hurting ourselves. So the one thing I always kind of encourage folks to do is number one, just pace yourself. You know, moderation is key, especially when you're not as active or as you might want to be. I think that keeps you from developing injuries. The other thing I think is, you know, a lot of people are going to exercise classes or doing yoga and Pilates. You know, the core stabilization exercises like Pilates are great. They help strengthen the core. They help maintain flexibility. And those are great preventative measures that I think can also, especially as it pertains to the low back, help some patients. Now, some people have pathology that just requires a physician's attention, but for the average Joe, if you will, I think those things can be helpful. The other thing is, you know, certainly the big discussion out there is always about weight. I find a lot of patients say that if I could lose, you know, 5 or 10 and 20 pounds, my back would feel better. And I would say that's sometimes true and sometimes not true. I actually anecdotally see a lot of patients in my practice that have lost significant amounts of weight, and they actually tell me their back hurts worse after they've done that,
Wow.
which is
odd?
interesting, which is odd.
Yeah.
But I think certainly weight control is important for general health, and certainly if you're very, very heavy, that certainly can be a contributing factor. But I just find moderation, maintaining flexibility. Some people like to do home traction units. They sometimes hang themselves upside down and.
Is that good? I mean, is it effective or?
Well, it's when you do those things, it's basically home-based traction. You're using gravity and your body's own weight to do that. So again, as long as it's not making your symptoms worse, I think it's a reasonable thing to try. But certainly, if you do those things and it makes your symptoms worse, you should certainly consult a physician and make sure there's something else.
You said something interesting about core stabilization. You think about how you sit upright. That's your back that does that.
Correct.
But your front has a lot to do with you being erect and having good posture, doesn't it?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the weight loss or weight control segment certainly.
Notice how I sat up a little straighter when I started talking. I realized I was slumping.
Absolutely.
Sit up straight when Dr. Shores is on.
That's right. And that goes also to ergonomics. I see a lot of folks that have desk jobs, or even folks that work out more manual labor type things. Just making sure that your workstation is properly set up for someone that has your physical size. Or if you're lifting outside, make sure you're using good lifting technique. Because the ergonomics of what you do on a daily basis certainly can aggravate back and neck pain.
That is so true. When you're sitting at your workstation at work, or even your home office, like I do, I have it set up just right, so I'm going on a moonshot. And I'm
Right.
I'm ready to go.
Right.
Is there should you really sit up straight, or can you slump a little, or you just got to be comfortable?
Well, I think, as we all go through the day, we all have a tendency to be a little less Emily Post, and we start to slouch and our shoulders get rounded, and that's actually, that's bad ergonomics. Doing that repetitively in certain types of activities can lead to repetitive stress injuries. So I do think it's important to always sit a little bit, straight, kind of like your mom always told you, sit up straight, keep your shoulders back, make sure that you're not slouching. I think long term that certainly has a benefit. So Mom was right on that one.
Yeah, I guess. And those core stabilization exercises can be almost anything, couldn't it?
Well, there's certain exercises that are focused more on the core. So yoga and Pilates are two that are done in almost every gym.
When we talk about core, what are we talking about? Are we talking about stomach muscles?
We're talking about your stomach, your low back. That they try to teach you to exercise with your pelvis and your hips in the right posture, if you will. And to strengthen the muscles so that your body remembers to try to hold you in those postures, which can also help with different types of back issues and or neck problems. So a lot of those types of exercises are being offered at many gyms. There's a lot of CDs you can buy or books on how to do that. So as long as they're helping and they're not making someone's symptoms worse, if someone already has back pain, then I think they're fine to do. But again, if you're doing those exercises and your symptoms, if you already have back pain or neck pain, are getting worse, I certainly would recommend consulting a physician for further evaluation.
Dr. Shores, thanks again for your insights on good health and good posture too.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We'll see you next week, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Scott and Cody from Barbed Wire Creek, and they're going to do a little bit of hillbilly headbanging for us. And what's the name of the song, guys?
Welcome to the woods.
Okay, so redneck metal. Welcome to the woods. Take it away, guys.
You ready? Never back down from a fight. Why don't you move a little closer, home? The light turn out your lights. Cause I was raised up to hold my own. Loaded on up and ran on. Punching that clock from dusk till dawn. As I make a little tree to get my drink on. Strap up your boots, grab some beer. Consider your ticket just to get in here. Head out to a place where the carnival got it good. I wasn't doing drums up. Well, you don't need an invitation. Well, all a part of a redneck nation, 'cause God made a special place for you and me. In the winter time, we'll be up in the stand. We're hunting our horse and bucking. And in the summertime, you can catch us in the creek. But when the sun goes down, run out, you crazy heats, come on out. We were raised up the whole night road, loaded on up, praying on home. Punching that clock from dusk till dawn, just to make a little chin and get our drink on. Strap up your boots, grab some beer, consider it your ticket just to get in here. Headed out to a place where the country folks got it good. Oh, welcome to the West. Oh, welcome to the West. Give me that drum, ready? Get on. Kick it. So baby, slide on those old cut-ons. Hop in the truck, 'cause then we're gonna ride it out to a place we call home. We were raised up the whole right road, loaded out and up and praying on home. Punching that clock from dusk till dawn, it's gonna make a little cheer and get our drink on. Strap up your boots, grab some beer, consider it your ticket just to get in here. Headed out to a place where the country folks got it good. We're headed out to a place where the country folks got it good. Welcome to the West. Oh, welcome to the West. Get on, son. Let's go.